I took still shots from Baby Driver and from Tropic Thunder and Ready Player One, and I'll just kind of cycle through those right now. And I'll just kind of explain. I did a lot of close-ups to faces because that's usually where pictures are the most clear. Like when a camera operator is really getting a close-up, they tend to uh, make the image really in focus. So I brought the Epson QB1000 down here into my main theater. In this theater, I have a 145-inch screen that's a 16:9 aspect ratio, and I wanted to compare it to my Epson 6050 UB, which I've been running for about 3 years now, ever since I built this theater, and it's mounted to the ceiling right up there. You can kind of see it. It's black, so it kind of blends in. After my last video, where I set up the 1000 in my tiny theater and projected it onto an 82-inch screen, I got a lot of comments from people who were a little, they were not exactly thrilled at the idea of an $8,000 laser projector being used on an 82-inch screen. And honestly, I get it. I get it. First of all, I don't get to keep this projector. As much as I would love to, it's on loan from Epson. So here in a couple days, I have to ship it back to them. Second of all, if I were building a dedicated theater and it was going to be my main theater, and this was where I was going to watch the bulk of my movies, yes, I would not set up a projector to project onto an 82-inch screen. That's not exactly what I would do. But the thing is that my tiny theater, it's kind of like a lab. It's kind of where I tinker, where I try different things. And sometimes I do outrageous things like put a $8,000 laser projector in there, right? These are things that I do because I have that second theater, that tiny room theater. And while I also have my main dedicated theater, this theater is where I really wanted to build the best, most immersive experience. Like you'll notice, I darked out the walls, right? Like in the tiny theater, I haven't painted the walls because that's not really what it's about, right? So I'm kind of getting off track here because I want to get into how the Epson QB1000 compares to the 6050 UB. So I set them up here. I've already got the 6050 in place, but I set up the 1000 and I was not expecting to see a lot of difference in the resolution. Like when I zoom in on a picture, on a still image, and I look at the pixels, I was not expecting to see a massive difference. And that is pretty much what I found. The two projectors at 17 and a half feet from the screen, projecting onto a 145-inch screen, the resolution looks pretty darn close. So why would you spend so much more on the laser projector? Well, first of all, it's a laser projector, so it will last for it's rated for over 20,000 hours, whereas the bulb projector, the 6050 UB, a bulb you can get anywhere from 2 to 3,000 hours before you have to replace the bulb. Now, it's not a huge cost, but it is a cost to replace that bulb. So that's one advantage that the laser has over the bulb 6050. But where I noticed the biggest difference, and it was noticeable, it literally in the first instant when I fired up the QB1000, and that is the clarity of the picture. Meaning, the QB1000 is 120 hertz, whereas the 6050 is 60 hertz, and this is well known. It's very obvious on TVs. 120 hertz TV. It's just so much clearer, especially when there's a lot of motion. The image is just sharper, right? And some people actually prefer the 60 hertz picture. They prefer things to be a little smoother and less clear, less sharp. So it really comes down to personal preference. But if that's something that is important to you, just know that the QB1000 with that 120 hertz refresh rate, it is sharp. and it looks really, really good if you like that sort of thing. The other difference, and this was not something that I was expecting. This kind of surprised me. So when I set up the QB1000 to compare it to the 6050, I wanted to get it as close to apples as I could. So I chose a picture or brightness setting. Epson, they have a bunch of presets like vivid, cinema, natural, etc. And it really just comes down to personal taste. You know, when you're watching a movie, you can just click through them and pick the one you like the most, right? So I wanted to set them as similar to each other as possible. So once I got them mostly where the brightness pretty well aligned, here's what I was not expecting. The QB1000, the fan, whisper quiet on that high brightness setting. The 6050, on the other hand, when I set it to that high brightness setting, the fan really kicked up. And I used a decibel meter on my phone, and I measured almost a 10 dB difference in sound at the main listening position from the QB1000 versus the 6050. The QB1000 measured about 28 dB, and the 6050 measured about 37 dB. So it was like 9, almost 10 dB difference. And so if ambient noise is important to you, and if you have a projector location that's close to your head at the main listening position, that is something to consider. The QB1000, the laser projector, is significantly quieter than the 6050 on similar brightness settings. Now, when I dialed the 6050 back to a kind of a dimmer setting, then the fan, I heard it wound down. It was like, and it got a lot quieter. And at that point, it got more in line. It got down closer to that 28 dB that the laser had. But the laser, it can run at a brighter setting and not generate as much heat. So the fan doesn't have to run as hard. So I wanted to show some kind of comparison shots of one versus the other. And again, it really isn't that big of a difference. I'll show you. I took still shots from Baby Driver and from Tropic Thunder and Ready Player One, and I'll just kind of cycle through those right now. And I'll just kind of explain. I did a lot of close-ups to faces because that's usually where pictures are the most clear. Like when a camera operator is really getting a close-up, they tend to make the image really in focus. It's really clear. So I used those as examples. Also, in Baby Driver, I used an example from the opening credits when the director's name came on the screen. There's like some some accent lines inside of the letters of his name. And again, it was pretty similar between the two projectors. The clarity, the resolution of the pixels, pretty similar, which is to be expected. They're both Epson's 4K pixel shifting technology. I think they've made some slight improvements over the years, but it's largely the same resolution. And you'll see that in the comparison shots. Now, also bear in mind that these comparison shots were taken from, they're projected onto my projector screen, captured with my handheld camera. So take it with a grain of salt. Like, this isn't like super, precise color matching, et cetera, et cetera. So it just kind of hopefully will give you an idea of how close the two pictures really are. So with all of that being said, I am really, really sad to send this Epson QB1000 back to Epson. It's on loan. I'm sad to send it back. I would love to just pull that 6050 down and just throw that 1000 up there and just run with that, because I love that 120 hertz refresh rate. The sharpness, the clarity, the picture, it just looks, oh, so good. And I would be able to run it on the higher setting, the higher brightness setting, and not have to worry about that fan noise. See, with the 6050, because it is so close to the main listening position, I typically will dial it back to kind of a dimmer setting. It also kind of saves on the bulb life. It extends the life of the bulb. So it's kind of dual purpose, but I would really like to have that that increase in brightness that I would be able to get with the 1000, but without the extra fan noise. So yeah, I am sad to send it back, but at the end of the day, having looked at these side by side, I'm just even more impressed with the 6050, the quality of the picture that it puts out and its price point. Now, the 6050 has been discontinued, but you can still buy the Epson 5050, which I don't know if there are any significant differences between the 6050 and the 6050 and the 5050. I think the 5050 is only available in white, which it doesn't really matter because you're not looking at the projector while you're watching the movie anyways. So, in a dark room with a white projector, it's not going to matter. I should also mention that the QB1000 is actually available in both white and black. So depending on your room, depending on your preference, you do have that option. So yeah, at the end of the day though, you really can't go wrong with either. Whether you go with the 5050 lamp projector, the QB1000 laser projector, you also have the LS11000, which I believe Epson is still making. I think they've discontinued the LS12000 laser projector, but the LS11000 I believe is still available to purchase. Any one of those is going to just do an amazing job. And really what it comes down to is your price point and your budget and what you're able to spend and how much you value those incremental increases in picture quality and refresh rate and fan noise and other things. But all in all, they're all fantastic projectors. With that said, thanks for watching.